Okay, we're into part two of reproduction and development. This is second part, human development. Students will explain how cell differentiation and development in the human organism are regulated by a combination of genetic, endocrine, and environmental factors. And here's some of the specific things that we have to kind of go through and identify. So I'm going to start with fertilization. Trace the process of fertilization. Now, it used to be believed that everything was preformed up until the 18th century. So there was a miniature infant in the sperm egg, and it just had to grow inside the mother. And obviously, we've changed that with the understanding of fertilization, that it takes about a minute for the sperm to embed itself, the head in the body to embed itself. And then it takes another 90 minutes or so for the first cell to divide, what we call the zygote. And during that time, the fusion of the egg and sperm nuclei occur about 20 minutes after fertilization. So we're going to break these processes down. And you could print this off and then fill out the next diagram. So the key parts is the acrosome. Remember, that is the part of the head of the nucleus that actually wiggles in and embeds itself and releases enzymes on the jelly coat, the zona pellucida. So here's the zona pellucida. Outside is the corona radiata, corona meaning crown. So this corona radiates around the egg cell, and the sperm wiggles through the corona radiata, and its enzymes penetrate and allow the head of the sperm past the zona pellucida. So B to D is the penetration. And then once the sperm nuclei have entered, we get an activation and we get the fusion, remember, about 20 minutes after occurring. Now, this video is excellent. It goes through the whole thing. It's well worth watching. Describe the development from fertilization to parturition in the context of main physiological events that occur in the development of organ systems during each stage or trimester. So some keywords here: zygote, blastocyst, gastrulation, and general development of the organs, known as morphogenesis. So the first stage is cleavage and implantation. You can see that here, cleavage. Implantation is when the developing ball of cells embeds itself on the uterus. Gastrulation, we will go through with blastocyst and the development of the nerve and organs. So cleavage and implantation. Now I've put up the diagram here of the menstrual cycle, just to remind ourselves of the hormones. If there is implantation, remember the egg implants, okay? And it develops into baby here. It starts embedding itself. So we have to maintain high levels of progesterone. How is that going to occur? The corpus luteum initially will be involved in maintaining high levels of progesterone and also estrogen as well. So the egg leaves the ovary. Fertilization occurs in the upper third, fertilization. The zygote, it's now called, the fertilized egg, undergoes cleavage. Now, the cleavage is just the splitting of the cells, first set of cells. And this forms a little berry called a morella, a 16-cell stage. That takes about 3 to 5 days before the morella eventually implants. Now, the blastocyst is the next stage after the morula. Now, inside this ball of cells, we get an inner cell mass forming, which is eventually going to form the baby, and a trophoblast, which will ball of cells, which will embed in the mother here. That's going to actually form the placenta and release a hormone, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, that will maintain corpus luteum to keep releasing progesterone at the first part of implantation. And there's implantation. Now, what happens if the egg does not get swept up by the fimbriae, go down the fallopian tube? You can actually have the egg being fertilized and implanting outside of the uterus, or it can be implanting actually inside the fallopian tube itself. Okay, so fertilized egg can implant here or outside. Now, this reading is about a stone baby. A 72-year-old woman, I believe, in South America, Colombia, complained about chest pains. She went to the doctor. They scanned her, and abdominal pains rather, and it turned out that she had a baby when she was very young, and she kept it inside her body and it calcified. So that's a very interesting story about ectopic pregnancy. Cleavage, then, process of cell division without enlargement of the cells. First step to becoming multicellular. Unequal division establishes a body plan, and this is just a little bit of extra information there. So this goes from a 2 to 4 to 8 to a 16 cell stage. 1, there's the zygote, okay? So 4, 8, 16 cell stage. Zygote, and you can see the cells dividing. There's our 16 cell stage called the morula. Now after that, we call it a blastocyst, and we develop 3 germ layers through a process called gastrulation, which you need to know. So the blastocyst is a hollow structure. The term just means pouch, okay? The trophoblast on the outside and the inner cell mass, which is going to form baby. So the trophoblast develops into the chorion. The chorion will form part of the placenta, and the inner cell mass develops into the embryo. Implantation, well, there's my blastocyst, and here we go. The trophoblast starts embedding itself into the endometrium, and this will form the placenta. The placenta will eventually release increasing levels of progesterone, and it will be the gateway between baby and mom. And the trophoblast seeks it, and it releases human chorionic gonadotropin. So high levels of progesterone and estrogen produced by the corpus luteum has a negative feedback on gonadotropins. You can't get pregnant again. So this keeps the uterus from shedding, inhibits uterine contractions, and prevents ovulation. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, comes from the chorion. And this is the placental hormone from the trophoblast, and it maintains a corpus luteum for the first 3 months. This is also the pregnancy test. So when someone thinks they might be pregnant, they can go and get a pregnancy kit, and they pee on a stick. And if the color turns blue, you got HCG. And if you've got HCG, you have implantation. And implantation equals pregnancy. Don't get that confused with fertilization. You're not pregnant upon fertilization. Only once there's implantation, you have a change in hormones. And then later on, estrogen, progesterone produced increasingly by the placenta. So this diagram shows all of this on figure 15.5. HCG high in the first trimester, there it is. And then increasingly, these levels of progesterone and estrogen, as they increase, the the corpus luteum isn't large enough to be producing increasing levels of progesterone estrogen. These are coming from the placenta. And we see that here. Okay, HCG, okay, maintaining from the ovaries and the from the ovaries, progesterone, estrogen in the first trimester. Notice that the arrows get smaller and smaller, and these arrows get larger because this is coming from the placenta. And then it takes right over because baby's so big and the uterus is so large now, all your progesterone, estrogen is not coming from the ovaries, it's coming from the placenta. Okay, gastrulation, cell differentiation and formation of 3 germ layers. Now, remember that there was this inner cell mass, okay, forming, and there was the trophoblast embedding. Well, part of the cavity forms the amniotic cavity, and that's what baby swims in. Inner cell mass flattens into a disc, and we call that the embryonic disc. And the folding of the embryonic disc into the 3 germ layers will form 3 germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And when those 3 germ layers, we get cell differentiation. The cells become different, and they get formed into 3 different germ layers. So the ectoderm is the outer body tissues: skin, nails, teeth, nerves, eyes, lining of the mouth. Mesoderm, middle, blood, lymph, bone, and emphyrean muscle, excretory and reproductive systems. And endo is your gut lining, but also respiratory, excretory, and reproductive systems as well. Now that forms later. Ectoderm and endoderm form first. Look, endo, inside. Remember, this was the inner cell mass, and it's starting to fold. Ecto on the outside. So that would make sense. That would be things like your skin, nails, teeth, okay? Outer body tissues. Endo, inner body tissues, is going to form your guts in lining of excretory reproductive systems. And then the meso forms later, emphyrean muscles. Now we can do, we can look at this from 2 ways. Longitudinal form. Here's your inner cell mass right there. Look at it folding. Okay, this eventually going to form your mouth and your anus, for the endoderm, for example. So note this yolk sac changes from being spherical, okay, to a T shape, and it gets smaller and smaller, okay? And the crossbar of the T becomes your gut, okay? Well, the stick becomes part of the umbilical cord. That's where the umbilical cord is going to form. And the yolk sac is really, in humans, it's not, it's kind of a vestigial organ. It's involved with, I think, blood formation. We'll look at this a little bit later on. Okay, now we can do it. Let's say we cut it in half. We get lateral folding. The top, ectoderm, there's your nerve cord forming. And there's your gut forming right there. This video is excellent. Watch it, and you will see this because you need to see this in 3 dimensions. Okay, your diagram, your textbook, you can review these right there. And we'll leave it at that.